Camera's here. Alright, so I've never done an unboxing before, and it probably shows in this video because I mostly just got very impatient and wanted to play with a new DJI Ronin 4D immediately. That said, I am very excited to talk about this new piece of gear, and I've got just a few initial observations after having it for a little over a week and taking it on a shoot or two. I will also say, right out of the gate, that I am primarily interested in shooting narrative work and music videos, neither of which I've gotten to shoot with this just yet. So I'll have a whole bunch of additional notes and opinions in a few weeks after using the Ronin 4D on those kinds of shoots. Got the universal package opener. Oh, void. If damaged. Officially void. I'm gonna keep this box. I know it. I know I'm gonna keep this box. I always keep boxes, and this seems like a good one. Oh, look at me. I didn't even open it on the right side up. Classic. That's all right. There you go. Whew. There's a million little sticky guys. In case you ever wanted to know how many sticky guys are on this box, it's a million. Oh, there we go. I was actually worried about the case. I didn't know if it was gonna ship with a case or not because all of the videos that you see with it beforehand, it ships with a really shitty piece of styrofoam. But this is a nice case. So you've got what appears to be the latest installment of Harry Potter, or perhaps a less problematic book. Is Harry Potter problematic? I guess it's just J.K. Rowling. A book from a less problematic author. I will definitely be reading this. I like this. Quick Start Guide V1.0. I felt pretty cool doing that, I'm not gonna lie. Wow, all right. There we go. Got foam interior case, handle strapped in nice and tight. Wow, look at that. Got what appears to be some cables. Yep, that's all your cables and stuff. All right, I'm gonna crack into this more. I'll see you guys when it's all assembled. When DJI first announced the 4D, I had two thoughts immediately. One, I don't need to buy that. And two, I really want to buy that. Ultimately, I did a bunch of reading. I was on their website like constantly. I watched as many videos as I could from other YouTubers, and I made some spreadsheets, and then I made the decision to sell some of the other pieces of gear I had to purchase the Ronin 4D 6K combo. The two biggest items I sold were my DJI Ronin 2 gimbal and my Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro G1 camera, which is kind of crazy when you think about it because this relatively small camera achieves what those huge pieces of gear achieved and much more at like 1/10 of the weight and a fraction of the setup time. Ultimately, I bought the Ronin 4D for two big reasons. The first is the most obvious, and that is being able to achieve some truly cool and unique stabilized shots with as few crew members as possible. The second is I actually didn't have a full frame camera or a camera that could shoot in 6K, and this ticked both of those boxes. All that being said, I don't have all the functions of the 4D just yet. I don't have the wireless transmission system and monitor because it's not available yet. I don't have the Sony E-mount because it's not available yet. I don't even have one of the native DJI lenses. The only two lenses I have that work on this camera right now are vintage Contax Zeiss lenses, an 18mm and a 25mm with an M-mount adapter and focus gears attached. So unlike a lot of the videos you'll probably see from some of the larger YouTube channels who got this camera and all the necessary parts to test out early, I don't have all that just yet. But I do have what I need to use the 4D in its most basic state and come up with some initial thoughts. So let's talk about that first. The current price tag of the Ronin 4D is $6,799, though I reserved it as $7,199 before the ProRes RAW announcement. B&H automatically refunded me the $400, which was really nice. And they also actually gave me an option to cancel my order when DJI made the ProRes RAW announcement, which I obviously did not do because I did not purchase this camera specifically for the ProRes RAW. In order to get mine up and running, I also purchased the Leica M mount and the Pro SSD attachment, the Pro SSD stick, the focus motor, and 2 additional batteries, which brought my total with tax to around $9,500. I'm also expecting to pay about $3,000 in additional accessories like the monitor and probably one of the counterweights and things like that when they are available, which means that while the initial price tag of this camera lands it at the high end of kind of the prosumer price tag, getting it fully outfitted to work in its best state definitely puts it in the professional camera price tag range. But it's still way more affordable than what you would have to pay in order to do what this camera can do with other pieces of gear. And if you somehow ended up on this video before looking at the other videos to figure out just what this camera can do, let me summarize what this camera can do as succinctly as I can. Wow. I'm not just gonna repeat what a lot of the other YouTubers have already said. They also happen to show it in a lot better way, but I will link to a few of my favorite videos on the Ronin 4D from other YouTubers in the description below, so you can see more from the folks who have had this camera for months, just what they've been able to achieve with. But what I can say is that if you're interested in filming motion, meaning you want to move the camera to achieve the kind of shots you see on big budget movies, this camera will do it. Or at least get you 90% of the way there. I can personally confirm what a lot of other channels have mentioned regarding the pros. The physical design and layout of the 4D is fantastic and very intuitive. The menu, which is more or less a ripoff of Blackmagic's menu system, is wonderful. Great. If you're gonna steal from the best. For how complicated and complex this camera looks, it's actually quite simple to set up and get running. I mean, ultimately, all of the things you'd hope that this camera can do, it does. You can recreate Steadicam shots, dolly shots, handheld shots, all in one take just by alternating which buttons you push down. You can make buttery smooth focus pulls automatically and worry way less about focusing while you're using a manual lens, or you can retain manual control in a way that you're used to. You can even do both of them in the same shot. It is truly remarkable. The image quality is fantastic. I'm still tinkering with some of the settings in post to give the image that filmic look that I really love, and I'm excited to use some anamorphic lenses when the E-mount comes out and directly compare it to my Blackmagic Pocket 4K with the Vazen anamorphic lenses, which is what I've been using for a lot of shoots recently. That said, there are several things I'm hoping DJI improves upon. The good news is that pretty much all of my early gripes are firmware related, which means they could be fixed with updates. And apparently many of the early issues with the system from when DJI sent it out to test months ago have already been addressed with the firmware update that shipped with the camera. When it comes to the hardware, DJI totally knocked it out of the park in my opinion. Really the only hardware drawback at this point to me is that you can't fit every lens you might want on here and use the Z-axis. That's a very minor gripe because there are so many great lenses that do work with this camera, and you can easily adapt a ton of great vintage lenses too. Some people have also pointed out that it can get a bit heavy, but compared to what I'm used to shooting on, the weight isn't really an issue. I did keep my ready rig for additional weight support, and I'm totally gonna bust that out for longer shoots if need be. But let's talk about some of the things I'd like to see in the firmware updates, hopefully as soon as possible. First of all, we have to address the very limited options when it comes to codecs and compression. Out of the box, you can choose to either shoot in ProRes 422 HQ or in H.264. Of course, the elephant in the room is the absence of ProRes RAW, thanks to the camera company that shall not be named using its death grip on the RAW patent, and once again proving how easy it is for a company to go from the scrappy underdog to the full-on villain in the film world. The issue here is that, frankly, most people are not going to film professional projects on H.264, which leaves you really only with ProRes 422 HQ, which totally gobbles up memory cards. I would love to see more compressed versions of ProRes, like the standard 422 or 422 LT. Ironically, DJI announced that ProRes 4444 XQ will be available in a new firmware update, but that's just going to make the file sizes even more massive. As a lot of people have noted, we might still see ProRes RAW put back into the camera if DJI reaches an agreement with the camera company that shall not be named. But even if that were the case, it would be nice to have a compressed codec that isn't H.264. Truthfully, my dream would be to see DJI license Blackmagic RAW for this camera, but it's much more realistic to at least expect more flavors of ProRes in the near future. The second thing I'd like to see is some native Desqueeze previews for anamorphic lenses. DJI makes a point to include the Sirui anamorphic lenses on its compatibility chart, but as best I can tell, there's no way to choose an anamorphic Desqueeze option for the monitor. I'd love to be able to do custom Desqueeze ratios for like 1.33x and 1.6x to cover what's available from Sirui right now, plus really just any other options since we're seeing more and more compact anamorphic lenses hit the market. And I'm sure it's just a matter of time before we have a 2x anamorphic lens for an E-mount that fits on the Ronin 4D. It's very strange to not have a monitor Desqueeze in the preview, and the Blackmagic Pocket 4K also launched without this feature, so I'm sure it's in the works, but I do plan on picking up the Sirui lenses when I have the E-mount adapter. The thought of looking at a squeezed image on the monitor is a little annoying. I would also like to see the mode button on the right handle have more functionality to toggle between additional options, including white balance, LUT activation, peaking options, etc. Right now in my setup, it toggles between ISO, ND filters, and iris. So basically just exposure controls. It would be great to be able to control more things from the handle grips, including changing your focus, peaking, and exposure options by like clicking the mode button while those functions are enabled or one of the buttons is held down. That would mean you don't have to take your hands off the handles to navigate to the menu to make those changes. It would be really cool to be able to use focus mag and peaking or peaking and LiDAR at the same time and make those changes without having to take your hands off the handles. That would be super dope. Basically, just make the mode button do more. I would also love a way to change what gimbal mode you're using directly from the handles. Right now, you have to manually flip switches on the side of the body. This is doable using your left thumb to stretch back and hit the 4D button or flip the switches to control what gimbal mode you're using. But it would be really cool if you could do that just by using combos of the buttons on the hand grips so that you could make the change in a pinch while shooting if you needed it. It's something you can do with ease on the DJI RS2, and I know this would have to initiate some sort of override for the physical switch on the side of the body, but I just think it would be worth it. I mean, even if it's just like a trigger mode where you have to activate it by holding down a button like you do with sport mode or by locking the Z axis using your right hand trigger. My last initial piece of feedback is that while the case it comes with is great for the initial setup, it leaves something to be desired in the way of additional space for accessories. Everything has its place, and you can fit an extra battery and the focus motor in the case as it is, but you have to take off the LiDAR sensor and the focus motor every time you want to pack it back up. There's no way you'll be able to fit additional pieces of kit like the wireless monitor in there, so I think I will unfortunately be looking for a third-party case option in the near future. You know, I get that DJI wanted to make it all very compact, but ultimately, I don't see a scenario in which you aren't carrying along at least one more case for the necessary components to make this camera really shine. I'd rather just have a larger case that has more room to fit expanded options. I'm sure I will have a lot more for y'all as I expand my use of the system, shoot more narrative work, get more lenses, but right now, I can't stress how excited I am to just keep diving into what this camera can do. I'm gonna put it on the Tilta Hydra Alien car mount soon for some narrative purposes, so I'll have some more footage from that setup as well. And you know, even if this camera is out of your price range to purchase, just think about how much more affordable it will make achieving certain shots just by renting it, assuming there will be any available for rent in the near future. And this camera was clearly designed with some modularity in mind, so think of all the awesome things we'll be able to achieve as more third-party companies make additional accessories and DJI launches new pieces to the kit. It's pretty exciting to think about what the possibilities could be. Basically, I'm really excited, okay? If you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the comments below and let me know what you're working on. In the meantime, check out more of our Gear Talk videos here.